and welcome back to another episode of the Employee to Boss podcast. I am your host, Hayleigh Hayhurst, the owner of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcasting agency specializing in editing, marketing, and strategy. If you want to launch your podcast this summer, definitely start reaching out to me now. My spots are filling up for podcast launches, and I would love for you to get one of them before summer starts. That way, you can start getting those listeners right away. You can start getting more clients. You can start getting more awareness and building that trust with your audience. Today, my guest is Lindsey, the owner of Coping with Lindsey. She is a financial therapist here to help you feel excited about money. And she says, yes, it is possible to feel excited about money. Money is more than just a math problem. There's always so much more to the equation. So Lindsey merges behavioral health therapy and financial coaching to help you live your unique dream, reach your goals, and grow your business. And this episode is really, really great, especially going into summer. I find that a lot of people are wanting to work less as entrepreneurs, but they don't want to lose that money. And so making sure that you have your mindset right around money is very important. All seasons as a business owner, but definitely during your slower or faster seasons. This episode really is great, and I learned a lot from it. We talk about different types of money behaviors. We talk about money as an entrepreneur. We talk about money goals and just a different way to think about it. So Lindsey talks about starting her business, what she was doing before, and how when she learned about the term financial therapy, how it changed the projection of her career. So let's get right into this episode with Lindsey from Coping with Lindsey. Hey, Lindsey, thank you so much for joining me on the Employee to Boss podcast. I'm really excited for this conversation today.
Thank you for having me. I'm pumped to be here.
Yes, I am so excited because we connected on Facebook and I was looking at your Instagram and just the things that you're posting, and it just really aligns with my business values too. And so I'm loving all of your content and very excited to dive into all things money and priorities and just being a business owner and like managing multiple things. So if you wanted to start off by telling us who you are and your journey from employee to boss, I would love to learn more.
Yeah, totally. So, like you said, I'm Lindsey. I am a financial therapist. And so, really, my journey has actually pivoted a lot. So, I think that is true for a lot of women, especially just starting out in business when you're like, you want to do something, but you're like not totally sure what you want to do or what's right for you. And so, I have been a therapist for the last 5 years. I'm a licensed mental health professional. So, I do carry a license in that. And I was working in a clinic. And it was fine. It was fine, right? Like everything, it's fine. And then I became a mom during the pandemic. And so for me, I knew that I wanted to be home with for sure my first baby and just kind of figure that out. And so that was really like one of the main kickstarting motivations behind like going out on my own and doing something. And for a while I was like, I'll just be a mom. And I shouldn't say just, but like that was what I thought I wanted. And then I got hit really hard with postpartum anxiety. I talk a lot about this on my blog, and I'm not shy to talk about it because I think it is just something that we really need to discuss more. And I think it's getting better, but there's still, a lot of room for improvement there. But I just had no idea how hard it was going to be. And what I was actually finding was I missed my job. Like I missed being a therapist. I, had been in that space for so long, and I just, I missed having something for me. And I really at that time was like, I just need to do something like about this. Like I'm definitely like a doer, right? And so I had actually started writing a book and a book proposal. And I told my husband, I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to publish this book and we're going for it. And I did. I figured out how to write it and publish it and go about it. So I'm now a published author, which is super cool. And it's called I Got 99 Coping Skills and Being a Bitch Ain't One. So from that
I love
title,
that.
thank you. Um, so from that title, you can tell like it's all about coping skills, right? Which is what I did in my previous practice and what I did, all throughout my career. Not exactly what I'm doing now, but that was a really good first step. So initially I was like, okay, I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to blog, which I have a blog. I do that. It's great. But but I knew I wanted to still do that like face-to-face interaction. I was missing that. And I'm so extroverted. I like love this type of stuff, like talking to people. And being a writer is incredible. And I love that I have, author,
Mhm.
on my list of things that I am. And a lot of what I did for the book was interviews. So it felt really good to like have that. But then when I was doing a blog, there was less interviewing, less face-to-face stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to like working with people. I started doing motherhood, kind of like coaching and type therapy stuff. I wasn't formally practicing as a therapist, so call it coaching. And I knew again, like that was good. I had kind of lifted myself out of my postpartum blues and frankly depression and anxiety. And that was like a good thing for a while. But then I knew like this isn't it. Like I'm not in total alignment. We're getting closer, but I'm not totally there. And then one day I heard the term financial therapist and I was like, boom. So I literally went home. I paused what I was listening to, went home, researched everything I could about financial therapy because I had been my own financial wellness journey with my husband now for over 8 years. And so that's like something that I really enjoy like learning about and doing and whatever. Plus it has the therapy component. And I was like, it's done. It's me. I am it. We are here. We found it. And it's been the best year of my life. And I'm so happy to say that it is going very well. And that's kind of my long story of who I am.
I love that. And back to your book, I was scrolling on your website to just
Yeah.
see like what services you have, what you offer, and I saw like how to not be a bitch and I literally laughed. Like that was so funny to me because it just like caught my eye. And I was like, I think I need this book.
Thank you, thank you. It's very good, I will say. Yeah, it was very fun to write, and I'm very happy I
Mhm.
did it, and I'm especially happy I did it because now I'm like, "Okay, now I'm totally in my niche, I'm in total alignment. Maybe there will be another book one day," and I feel, like,
Yeah.
confident in how that all went, but it's all messy. It's all very, very messy action that I took to get here, and it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the best way to actually start a business and keep it going. And I love how you adapted to figure out exactly what stood out to you. So that's amazing. I love your story. What was it about financial therapy that really stood out to you? I know you mentioned you've gone through this journey with your husband, but what was it that you were like, yes, this is it?
I genuinely in my bones believe that money isn't just a math problem. Like I always say, there's always so
Mhm.
much more to the equation, right? It's not just a numbers and cents issue, it's a feelings and behavior and habits issue. And so merging the two feels so good because really what I do is merge behavioral therapy that I'm, well equipped in with financial coaching. And so I practiced in my previous practice, I did short, brief solution focused therapy. I was not like the therapist that you saw for 3 years at a time, right? I was very much like, what is your presenting problem? How are we gonna figure it out? And that's still the approach that I take now in my financial therapy practice, but everything is money, and what I love about it too is at the end of the day, every decision that you make has a financial component to it, right? Which is only true for 3 things. Are we healthy enough to do something? Can we afford to do something? And if you have kids, you're asking yourself if they're coming or not, right? So it really touches everything about your life, and I genuinely believe that once you have, like, your finances under control, your relationship with money is in a healthy space, you can do anything.
Yeah. I heard the phrase very similar to that once that every choice has an invoice, and I wrote it down and I put it on my wall because it just makes me think that like every single post you make as a business owner could lead to your next client or, you know, any investment you make in your business, even if it's a large investment, it could pay off, right? Like your choices do impact your
Oh,
financials
yeah.
directly, like you're saying. So I'm not the best with money. I am the first to admit that. And when I started my business, I was like, "Oh my gosh, like I actually need to get better at this because you could go to jail. All these things could happen." Right?
You can. Yep, that's true.
I was like I should probably figure this out. So it was a long journey to figure out, personal finances to business finances. And I would love to hear from you what advice you have for business owners who are trying to figure out their finances.
Yeah, I think you did it probably in the right order. I think the very first thing to do is, like, figure out from a personal standpoint what that looks like, right? Like, because once you're in like the business space, you might have a lot of blocks on how you feel about income, about how you feel about earning money, right? I run into this sometimes with clients where they almost have this like feeling that like money is dirty or bad or having a lot of it makes you really greedy, right? And so we call these money scripts. It's things like to your point when you're saying I'm really bad at money, that's a money script that you've held for however many years. And a lot of time they're actually unconscious beliefs. And so you really have to tune into yourself and start hearing the things that you're telling yourself. And so that's one of the first steps that we actually do in therapy is like what are some of the narratives that you hold, right? And once you can kind of break through some of those, then you can start understanding how your business expenses and your business income really impacts your personal, right? Because they need to be kept separate for a while, right? There's so much legal, and I'm not here to give legal advice by any means, but I think it is really important for you to understand what's happening in like your current personal stuff, especially if you're somebody,
Mhm.
and I'm sure a lot of your listeners are who are like the side hustle warriors right now. Like get your 9 to 5 money situated and how that all feels before you can really like turn up the dial on like your business stuff, right? That is definitely step number one.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense of like prioritizing one before you prioritize both because it
Mhm.
can get very overwhelming, I'm
Oh, yeah.
sure. So, when you were deciding you wanted to be a financial therapist, I would love to hear like what steps you took to actually make it happen. Like you said that you went through this with your husband and your own journey. So, were you taking your own experiences and then making it your framework or market research? I would love to hear like the nitty-gritty of it all.
Yeah, down and dirty. Yes. So,
Yes.
yes, my husband and I kind of like, figured it out. And totally transparent. Like it was a bumpy ride for us, right? Like when you're in a
Mhm.
coupleship like that, like I had my own preconceived ideas and money scripts of my own and he did too and whatever. So luckily kind of when I tuned into the financial therapy piece of it, we had been situated, right? We we get it now. So that feels really good. And yes, I absolutely use that in my framework. I when I heard the term, I went home and like immediately Googled it. Was like, what is a financial therapist? What's happening? And I found out there are different certifications that I'm qualified for as a master's level social worker. And so I found the certification program that was right for me. Now, I don't think that every single person needs a certification. I could have easily said, like, I'm a financial coach and with a therapy background or whatever. But I wanted to see exactly to your point, like, is there a framework that I can, build off of and use and just whatever and put my mind at ease a little bit? We have a 48-hour rule in our house that any major purchase we have to wait 48 hours for. And so I did. I abided by our rule, even though I did not want to. And I took the plunge and I bought the certification course for me. In part, my justification was that I needed CEUs to continue my licensing status anyway. So I was like, okay, this is a dual purpose course, right?
Yeah.
But I did take that and it really basically just confirmed that I had all the skills already to be a financial therapist. And so from that point forward, I actually, what you'll find interesting is I knew how to be a therapist. I knew how money works and how I'd gotten to the path that we are and the general map of kind of how you get to the place that you need to go to, right? But I had no freaking clue how to run a business. So I invested in a
Mhm.
business course and I invested in one on one mentorship. And I highly, highly recommend people do that because without that, I would be floundering in the abyss of still like, what am I doing? And am I doing it right? And legally and all right, all these things.
Yeah.
And I have at this point invested no less than for sure $8,000, maybe more over the last for sure 18 months in my business to make sure that I am doing it all correctly, right? And I'm learning from people that have done it before me so I can learn from the right people, all that kind of stuff. And it made all the world of difference because even in the last 18 months since really I've like started like between really like the point of when I started selling my book to now, I'm still at a profit, which is not true for a lot of like new business owners in the first couple of years. It is hard to profit, right? That is just true. And I don't think people really totally understand how
Mhm.
unlikely that is. And so I definitely attribute that to making these bigger investments in kind of my future, our future, the things that we want for my business and our life as a whole. And now I think I'm going on a tangent. So let's bring
No,
it
I
back
mean,
in.
I love that. No, that I think that's, like, really important to point out where you wanted to start this business, but it's the same for every business owner, right? Some people are good at sales, some people are
Yeah.
good with marketing, some people are good with like the money aspect. But you're not probably going to be good at everything unless you went to school for something like this, like business. And even then, there's always going to be something that you can improve
Oh
on.
yeah.
So I love that you took that step to invest in your own business. And I recently did the same. I also hired a business coach. I'm 4 years in business now, and have had coaches in the past and then recently just hired one, and it truly, truly has made a world of difference, like you're saying, because yes, it's all things that I could probably learn slowly on YouTube or Instagram or following 1 million people, but I always think of it like the ROI of my time, right? It's not going to be well spent Googling 1 million things. It's probably going to be better spent actually spending money and streamlining that process.
That's exactly how I thought about it too. It was like I know I am all in on this. We had created
Mhm.
a runway, so we knew that like fiscally we were going to be okay. Again, that was a personal choice, not and a business choice, but from a personal standpoint, like even if I wasn't bringing in income for 2 years, we were going to be okay. And
Yeah.
then taking the risk, taking that plunge and really doing it. And I did, to answer kind of your other question too, I did a lot of market research. I had a lot of calls before I was even offering anything, before I was selling anything, before like people knew I was kind of maybe going that direction. But
Mhm.
so many women in my community already were like very willing just to help, hop on a call with me for 10 or 15 minutes and say, like, hey, this is kind of what we're struggling with in our life, like whatever, like, okay, I can attune to that or whatever. Really hone in on like who I want to help and like the target market for me and my dream clients and make sure that the relationship like, I don't want clients that I don't wanna work with, frankly, and they don't
Right,
want
yeah.
to be like, I'm not gonna be right for everybody, and that's okay, but
Yeah.
figuring that out was really, really important, and I started charging, like, nothing for my services. I was like, "I just want
Mhm.
experience, I want to see testimonials or evaluations, like, I'm open to criticism, just let me know what's going well."
The more criticism you can get, the better you can grow and the faster you can, so,
Totally, yeah,
yeah,
it's
I love
helpful.
that. Very, very helpful. Yeah, so I love that that's kind of the way that you took that, and that's great for anyone, any advice, right? Anyone who wants to start something, it is good to start off by just trying it, seeing how it's going, and figuring out exactly what works and what doesn't.
Mhm.
So, when you were asking, can you give us some advice on like that market research you were doing? What was it that you were asking these women and how are you getting them on the calls with you?
Really, it had been people who have kind of been in my circle of, like, community anyway, so it's so funny, a lot of people kinda popped out of the woodwork. It was, like, previous jobs that I'd had, 8 or 10 years ago that we just happened to follow each other on Instagram and have kept in
Mhm.
touch for, small points of contact here and there throughout life, and people that I noticed would, like, comment on stuff regularly or, like, not regularly, but just periodically kinda stuff, and innately, people wanna help people, especially women, right? Like, we are nurtured into that, and so if at any point somebody reached out to me and was like, "Hey, do you have 15 minutes to do a little chat about something I'm wondering about?" I'd be like, "Yeah, let's find time," right? And because that feels good. It feels good to be able to help them. And I think it was so easy for people to say, like, yeah, especially knowing that I wasn't tricking them into selling anything. Like, I didn't have an ulterior motive. I genuinely was just like, what do you find to be hard about money? Like, I just want to know kind of what language they're using. What do they perceive as, are they quote unquote bad with money or have they been taught different things? Like just and really what I did was I listened, I would ask a question and then I would shut up and listen to their answer and not try and think that I already knew what they were going to say. Eventually, I think I knew my market research could kinda turn it down, yet I still do it, but I could turn it down a bit when I started kind of knowing what they were gonna say and that being true, right? It was like, again, consistent language across the board, and so that was really, really helpful, and it was I mean, some people wouldn't get back to me or whatever, but it wasn't like it never really felt icky. I guess it was a little, like, awkward at first to be like, "Hi, I'm new, help." But who likes that, right? Like, nobody likes to be the person that's like,
Yeah.
"I'm new at something and I'm trying," like, as human beings, we are terrible at being bad at stuff. We think that we're gonna go from, like, 0 to 100 in a blink of an eye.
Mhm.
But I think having that vulnerability and just being able to, like, go for it was really helpful.
Yeah. And that definitely probably ties back to your therapy background of being able to actually listen to people and
Yes, that
it's
is
like
a good quality, I would say.
I would say it's a quality that a lot of people need to work on for sure. So,
Yes.
great advice there.
The emotional
So,
intelligence of, like, our nation could, like, crank up a notch,
100%. I mean, listening is such a skill. Like, as a podcast host, I have to, and it's something that I always am like working on more and more. But there are some people there that just maybe haven't ever had to practice their listening skills. And I've interviewed multiple people in the past who have, like, we've had conversations just about how to listen, and they're very listened to, like the episodes are. So I know it's something that people want to get better at, but you just need to
You just
practice
have to
it.
practice, and that's all a part of the market research, right? Is again, you're not gonna be
Mhm.
super good at it. And to your point, when I was in school for my master's, that was something we had to do, was like we were filmed
Mhm.
doing mock, therapy sessions, and I had to watch myself and listen to, like, myself and the person again and, like, see, like, was I picking up on the things, so, like, I've had, like, education in that. So, yes, I totally agree with you. It is a skill. You're probably gonna sound like a buffoon when you're talking to the first couple people, and that's fine. Like, just keep going, keep doing it because it
Yeah.
really truly is all about kind of following what people are saying.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, that's the way that people are going to feel connected to you when you're finally actually selling to them, right? Instead of being like, "Oh, buy this," and they're like, "Why?"
Yeah,
You can probably talk to their exact reasons, be like, "Oh, yes, I heard you have this issue. Here's exactly how I can help you," without it being, like, salesy and gross, right? It's, like, genuinely wanting to help people.
exactly. Yep, I totally agree.
So I've loved hearing about how you kind of like did the market research and started the business, like the functions of it. I would also love to learn more about these money scripts that you were talking about. Like, as women, yeah, a lot of us do say, "Oh, I'm bad with money," or this or that. What are some of the most common ones? And could you give us a little bit of advice for business owners of how to start to overcome these?
Yeah, so there's actually 4 categories of money scripts. There's endless amounts of them, right? Whatever it kind of comes up for you, but the money script
Mhm.
categories are avoidance, worship, status, and vigilance. So the avoidant ones are simply that, right? Like, I'm bad with money or whatever. The worship is like, if I just had more money, things would be better. Okay. That's one I hear a lot, is like, well, I just have to make
Okay.
more. You're like, okay, maybe, maybe not.
Oh, I feel called out. I think that might be me.
You're like, "Oh, crap, no." Yes, I do hear that one a lot, and that kinda leads into then how are we prioritizing our spending and saving habits, and are we practicing intentional spending? We can talk about those more if you want to, but so that's worship. Status is like, I want the best of everything, and you might even buy the best of the best. So, like, a new car or designer handbags or whatever, jackets, stuff like that, even if you can't necessarily afford it. So, you might even go into credit card debt for these things, but you've kind of been like thought or trained to need and want the best. And finally, vigilance. Vigilance is if there's a category that's kind of like the quote unquote better one, that is typically seen as
Mhm.
the better one because it's a lot of like I want to save for a rainy day kind of situation. I happen to believe that the saver spender situation, like saver versus spender, is a myth. Like, I think everyone is a spender and everyone is a saver. It's just a matter of how you're, again, prioritizing those things. So when you're like money vigilant, you might be the person that's like, adept at putting things in savings or in investment accounts. However, the pendulum can swing too far in that also, where the financial independence retire early community can take that on a
Oh, yeah.
whole new level. And so there are kind of that it can swing too far too, I think. And so it's a really ends up being a balance of figuring out what is it that's right for you today while also saving for, your midterm and long-term goals also.
Yeah, and speaking of fire, I always see videos of people who are doing that method of saving their money, and also dinks I hear all the time on TikTok and Instagram, like double income, no kids.
Yes.
And it's just people are really, you know, striving to make a lot of money and be able to have it and spend it how they want. But I think that maybe, like, like you're saying, fire is a quite aggressive way to do it. So there's probably you have all the ideas of how to find the middle ground. But thank you for walking us through those four habits that a lot of people have. One of the things that I hear a lot of business owners say to me is back to like investing in their business. Like, it's scary. Sometimes it could be the biggest investment they've made in their life,
Mhm.
and not sure if there will be an ROI, or as women, investing in ourselves can be scary. All these things of really like taking a bet on yourself. And I would love to hear how this ties into what you were just describing.
Yes. So, a couple things. I would tell somebody who is in like a traditional 9 to 5 salaried position, whatever, whether them, if they're partnered, if that's kind of like their course and trajectory, that is a totally different conversation than what you're saying, like with these new business owners and when the investment is right and
Mhm.
how much of an investment is right. I would not probably tell the person in a 9 to 5 who wants to stay there and is happy in their little safety bubble of that to like, yeah, just go out and drop, $3,000 on whatever, like an investment for, something frivolous maybe. When you're talking to a business owner, there's also the component of risk versus reward. Okay.
Mhm.
And there's also like you have to take risks in business more so than you do with like your personal finances. So that separation can be really hard, especially when you're in the new phases of owning a business, because you're like, at what point do I like find this risk? Right. And so I think that's a really important distinction to make. Again, I would do that market research, right? Like that's kind of first to figure out really what is it that you even want to be doing? What are you selling? Who are you selling to? All that kind of stuff. But when you find the right person where you're like, okay, I feel like I can learn a lot from them. I know I need a website. I know I need this stuff. Then it's time. Like it is really truly time to take that risk because once you kind of have that like taste of what your life could be like. And once you have that really clear vision of what you're striving for yourself and again, your partner or your family, that makes it all worth it. And I think what it boils down to is, and I say this to every single one of my clients, the more clear you can get in like the life that you're dreaming up for yourself, the better and more likely it is that that return on investment is actually going to happen for you. Okay. I'll give you an example. And this is actually kind of a personal spending example, but you'll get what I'm saying. Is my husband and I have been saving for a trip to Portugal, like, and we'll bring our kids, and we like are so pumped about it. Like, we're
So
just like we're
fun,
going
yeah.
right. And as soon as we had kind of because we were kind of floundering on like where we wanted to go, all the things. And as soon as we made the decision about Portugal, I quite literally could like visualize myself like flowy dress in the breeze, sitting in the little like square, drinking my sangria or the like, right? And I have this picture of exactly like my kids are there, they're running around, they're playing together. My husband is at the table next to me. Like I have the whole thing in my head. Like I've truly visualized this down to like this moment will happen. And it makes it so much easier for me to do 2 things. One, when I'm, like, meandering through the Target trap of, all the things that I want for my home that I don't really need, it makes it a lot easier for me to walk away from that $40 sweater and put that instead in my savings account, okay? And that is true for your business too, right? When you have this mighty clear vision of what you want and how you want it to go, Again, room for change, all the things, but have that really clear direction of where you want your life and your business to go. It makes putting that money aside or investing in that dream so much easier.
That's a great example, and I'm so excited for your trip to
Thank
Portugal.
you.
That will be so fun. But yeah, that's so true of like visual, like you have that in your head. And I know for me at least, if I invest in something for my business or on a trip, that feels a lot better to me than checking my bank account after a night out and being like, how the heck did I,
Yes.
you know? And so yeah, like the feelings with it are very, very different. So I really like that visualizing. And that comes back to the priorities that you're talking about, where for anyone who's listening who's like, how do like, I don't have a big trip coming up. I don't have any big investments coming up, like for me specifically. So can I come up with my priorities without having something like major that I'm saving for? Because for me, saving to save just doesn't usually work.
No, it doesn't. And I am so happy you said that because, first of all, I think that's so true for everyone. It's like when I don't have a clear idea of what I'm even putting money away for, then why would I do it?
Mhm.
So a couple of things on that. One, I would say like research tells us that you kind of separate who you are now from who you are as an older adult ready to retire. So it makes it really hard to put money away for retirement. Do it anyway. Okay. That's number one. So if you're not already doing that, 100% do that. Okay. That's usually like the long term plan. Secondly, when we're talking maybe like those midterm, so short term goals are like 1, maybe even 2 years kind of out. Your midterm goals are anything kind of 2 years to 10, even 15 years out. And then we're talking long term goals. Okay. So, what I would say is one, if you're like, I don't know what I want to save for, go to the drawing board, start dreaming. Okay. Like brainstorm
Mm.
things that you enjoy. Just write down stuff. Like I have literally, you can't see it here, but I have a pad of paper, like one of the big post it notes. I forget what they're called. But I literally will just like do a brain dump on them and just write out things that like sound fun. I am very, very clear on my spending pillars and my value pillars. So, like for us, travel is big. Family experiences are big. Going out with my girlfriends is something that I really value. So I make sure that like I'm spending money and time on that. If you are struggling to narrow down your priorities, you can check two things: your calendar and you can check your bank statements. Because whether or not you want to be prioritizing the things that are on those, that is where your priorities lie. And it's really important for you to kind of do an evaluation of where you are putting your time and money, and then you can you'll see what happens is you'll look at it and you'll either be like, "Oh yeah, I'm in total alignment. It's going super well." Or you'll look at it and be like, "Oh no. That's not for me. I don't want it to look like that." And you will know what you want it to start looking like instead.
Very scary to take the first step in that, but very important too.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing
Maybe have
that.
glass of wine in hand. It might feel better for you.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I'll probably do that too. So, what are some ways that you help your clients? I know you've talked about, overcoming these mindset scripts and all of these different things, but what services do you offer that you help your clients with?
Yeah, so I do one-to-one therapy, so individual therapy, I do couples therapy. I just have started giving or offering what I'm calling power hours. So basically 2 hours, like you come really, really prepared on those where it's like all of your questions are in hand about like what you have going on, what you're dreaming about. Like you've kind of done some of the work, like the dreaming work already. You have a clear vision of what you want. We're setting you up for it with like an action plan. We list out all your options, we talk about what feels right for you, and then I kind of send you away with like a document of like this is your next like 6-month action plan or year action plan, right? The
That, yeah.
one-to-one or couples therapy is a little bit more ongoing. It's still brief solution focused. So typically see my clients for about 10 sessions. A lot of that work is essentially exploring your relationship with your money. What was your money story? What was it like in your household growing up around money? That's huge for people to start thinking about because no one thinks about it. But if you do, you suppress it. And then again, start kind of giving you ideas on like where your, fixed costs need to be, where you should be spending money. What is your like discretionary guilt-free spending look like for you and your partner, right? Savings goals, we always implement those and really like visualize together what it is that you want your life to look like. And then how you're allocating your money to do that for you and automating as much as possible during all of this. So that's kind of those. And then I've also, because again, you'll appreciate this because you know business. The last, it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, 5 of my clients in a row, and one that I wasn't a client, they just asked to grab coffee. I did, has come to me and been like, I need to know how to run a business. Like that is the dream and I need to figure it out. So I've
Mhm.
now just started offering actually small coaching packages, just like initial one-on-one mentorship for if you are a new business owner and you're like, I don't even have a website. Like I want to do some of that. It's like, okay, I have a very well functioning website. I make money from my blog. I have SEO expertise, right? So I was like, I feel like at this point I've done the right steps. I'm running a profitable business. It feels like maybe that's something I should follow the market and offer
Mhm.
that. So I'm just kind of getting my toes wet, and I have 2 clients that we are starting pretty soon. And so my rate is fairly low because it's just kind of, again, I'm in that new stage of like, I'm not charging $15,000 for a package. I'm simply, seeing how it feels for me, making sure that I can serve them in the way that they want. And then again, asking for that testimonial, like, hey, how was your experience together? Can I get some, you know, solid evaluation? And if
Yeah.
they enjoy their time, tell their friends, that kind of situation.
That's awesome. I love all of those. And I feel like we're kind of in the same part of business right now because just like you, I was doing free podcast trainings, podcast audits, like really helping people with their podcasts. And then I started charging for it. And now that I've put in all those hours of work, I have started doing more paid trainings and VIP days and all of these things. So very awesome, and I love how going back to, like, the very start of how you started your initial offerings with financial therapy, now that you have this business offering, you're going back to what you did that was successful before of just, like, asking people what they need, talking to them, and having those conversations, so it's kinda like a tried and true method that is working for you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I was like, okay, I literally conversed with my husband about it because I was like, that's number 3 that in a row, which I thought was just weird, in a row,
Yeah.
people have like in our therapy sessions or just kind of out and about, like, yeah, I'm thinking about starting a business. And what have you done with this? And how did that work for you? And I was like, gosh, maybe I should tune it. And then the fourth one, I was like, okay, maybe I should just
You're like, "It
offer
has
like,
to
hey,
happen."
And I was like, great. Now, like, and I love financial therapy. I will continue doing that for the foreseeable future, but it feels good to also know that I can expand into different things. And again, we're just kind of going with where the business is taking me, and we don't always know where that's going to go, but I'm enjoying every single step of the way for the most part. There's
For
some hiccups when
always
I
for the
break my own links last week and I wanted to throw my computer against the wall. Life
Oh,
happens,
yeah.
but here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was just like I said, I'm a podcast manager, and the website I was using to upload my podcast to deleted my whole show. Like every single episode, I it sent me an email like, "Hey, we think your podcast is fraud. It's gone." And I was like, "What do you mean?"
Okay,
And
this
it
is
was
good to
just
talk
like,
about though, because I don't want it to also seem like business, everything is like glamorous and just like lovey dovey the whole time. Shit like this
yeah.
happens and it's bad. That's what did you do?
I emailed them and I was like, "What do you mean it's fraud? Like it's not like what are you talking about?" And they were like, "Whoops, sorry, it was like an automatic like mistake." And I was so mad. I switched hosting platforms. Everything got re-uploaded, but I was like, "This is not a good look for my podcast management business. Like, what are you trying to do to me right now?"
Okay, that's so funny you say that. Literally, so as I'm like, you know, talking to these women and I'm like, yeah, I'm actually considering offering, business coaching. Would that be something you want? That's when all my links break. So this one prospective client is like talking to me and she's like, yeah, just wondering if I can join this and learn a little bit more about that. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. And then she's twice had to email me, "Hey, yeah, this link is broken." I'm like, "You're probably not gonna wanna work with me, are you?" And actually, we haven't I don't know. Maybe she will, maybe she won't, I don't know.
It
But of course, I'm just
happens.
like,
It
is
happens.
this is sometimes the world, I think, like, throwing hurdles at you to be like, "Do you still want it? How hard you willing
Yeah.
to work for it?" And then you get over it and it
Yep.
feels I think literally that happened over the weekend on Saturday. I was, like, almost in tears talking about how I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, everything is breaking. I'm messing stuff up, like, blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah." 2 days later, I signed 3 clients in one day, had somebody come
Oh
back
my
and,
god.
like, from who I previously was
Yeah.
working with is coming back to work with me, and I was just like, "Okay, the world is back in
Back
alignment with me. We're
back to
good.
normal.
We're okay.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, definitely it's the universe being like, "How bad do you want this? Are you willing to overcome this?" And if you say yes, it usually works out. So congrats on those 3 clients, and it was the universe saying sorry,
Yes.
I think.
Like, you're ready for the next level. We're leveling up here.
Right,
All right.
right. It's like, "Good job, you
Yeah.
passed. Here you
Yeah,
go."
exactly, exactly. So good. No, I'm glad that, yeah, because I do think that that's important because it's hard. It is hard work to run a business.
Yeah,
No
there's
small
those
feat.
moments where you're like, "Wow, wow." Well, I have loved this conversation and everything that you've shared so far. And to wrap up every episode of mine, I ask my guests to share 3 action steps for the audience to take to move forward in their business or life. So, how do you want to challenge the audience this week?
Okay. I love this question. I like to break things down as small as possible. So I would say number 1, like the clarity part I think is really big. So start brainstorming again those small, medium, long-term goals, and it doesn't have to be like money related. Like again, everything is tied to your money. So if you're like, I see this for the future of me and my family and my husband, whatever. Great. Write that down. Okay. So just getting more clear on exactly where you're trying to go in your life. Okay. So that's probably number 1. Number 2 is if you're like still new at this, start getting more people in your sphere of like if money's really intimidating to you or if you're like an avoider, right? And you're like, I'm bad with money. Start following people that are willing to talk about money because you're already on social media. I know that you are. And so you can start clicking through and seeing some of like positive money messages in your feed, right? I think that can be really helpful to just kind of get more money stuff in your environment. And then finally, I I would love for people to start if you have not started investing in yourself, do that and figure out what that is for you. That can be your health, that can be retirement investments. If you are not investing for retirement, please, dear God, start. Reach out to me. I will help you. I'm not a financial advisor. I do not give advice, but I show you what your options are. Okay. That's really important to
Mhm.
me. And or invest in your business, whatever that looks like, whether it's mentorship, whether it's joining a community that you have other women to lean on. If you're starting a podcast, right? Talk to Hayleigh. Like this is all really, really important. So invest you like this is your permission slip. Do it, whatever it looks like.
I love those. Those are so great. And I'll put, all of these in the show notes so people can really look back and be like, okay, let's see how I do this. And please, for all the listeners, reach out to Lindsey to help you with any money questions you might have. I'll put all of her links in the show notes too. But Lindsey, where can people connect with you?
Yeah, so I am still doing the solopreneur thing and I'm very happy at it right now. So if you come and find me on Instagram or email me, whatever, it's me actually responding to you. I am Coping with Lindsey on Instagram. That's also my website, copingwithlindsey.com. And you can email me to lindsey@copingwithlindsey.com. All the things.
Awesome. Lindsey, is there anything else you would like to share?
No, this has been super fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on. I've loved this conversation.
Good.
Thank you for listening to the Employee to Boss podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I hope that you implement the actionable steps from this week's experts so you can get started with your business today. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Employee to Boss podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps more than you could ever imagine. Remember, a little progress each day leads to big results. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. To access our show notes, transcripts, and courses, please check out espressopodcastproduction.com.